This is something we're getting a lot of questions on. One of the first ones we got, and JD, this is something you and I talked about in regards to the whole Eric Bieniemy Mahomes fight last week. We always say that it's unfair. EB gets a lot of BS criticism when the offense looks like shit. Oh man, EB's calling plays. Offense looks good. Oh, it's clear Andy Reid's calling plays this week, and what do you think about that? Because a lot of people on Twitter were saying, "Oh, it's obvious Andy Reid's calling plays this week. The offense looks more creative. It's looking like the Chiefs of old, like a well-tuned machine." Then we have people here asking us the question. So, do you think there was any change in who was calling plays this week?
Look, man, like I said before, EB's not going to get a fair shake. I mean, it's just what it is, right? And so, he could call a brilliant game, but it's going to be like what Andy called those, where he's the one to talk EB and could call on those plays. But the thing is, man, what I like it's a collaborative effort. And the thing is, you have a wonderful offensive staff, right? So it's just not Andy or EB. You got, a lot of guys that come in and they give input about what's great. You see Patrick on the sideline. He's talking about, hey, man, this is what I like. And I love the communication. And sometimes when, you're trying to communicate, you're going to have a little bit of some fight come out, right? Some part of those challenges. And that's what we've seen. But I don't want us to kind of, if we harp on those things and look at the optics of it, it's going to look bad, right? We're going, oh, my gosh, they're having a problem here and there and stuff like that. But you know what? I seen the second half of last week. It was, guys are open. Patrick was missing he's missing some things. He's missing some check downs. So it wasn't always, thinking like, oh man, this is just terrible. He needs to go. I just don't buy into it because I know how it is, especially on the opposite side of the ball. You got two guys who are very, very competitive. Okay. They love each other. All right. And they're going to fight like brothers. They are. And so EB has to pull Patrick back. Patrick may sometimes he might have to push EB like, yo, man, we got to make this call. And so that's what you do as a championship team. These guys, man, they've been doing it for a long time with each other. Four AFC championship games. Come on, man. Seriously. This when I look at that and I hear sometimes the narrative of it, it just doesn't bear it out for me. It's just, when I see it, I just see the results. I'm just like, it doesn't really seem like a shattered relationship. You know what I'm saying? Because if it is, they wouldn't be as successful as they were, right? You see a little bit more people jumping the ship, if you will. Because you got stars. You got stars who don't have to sit there and say, hey, yeah, you scored a good game, or yeah, I didn't quite like that call. You see guys who are actually taking responsibility over some of the things that they didn't quite do right, like Patrick did. So I just, the whole EB thing, when you do that, you can do more harm than good. But guys understand, like when you inside the locker room, it's you all. It ain't nobody else. All the noise and stuff out here, none of that matters. And you can't let any of that get inside your head. You can't let nobody start whispering in your ear. All that matters is everybody got the same goal. We're working toward that goal, right? So,
yeah, it definitely helps things out when Patrick can connect with MVS deep downfield, because that's what happened last week. That's you can make that case that he hits MVS last week. The Chiefs win the game against the Colts. There's several different factors, but we know that was one of them. And they connected multiple times this week downfield, and you saw how much of a difference it was for the offense. Let me just say this when it comes to the theory of when is Eric Bieniemy calling the plays when it's only bad? Is he only calling does he not call plays when things are good? That's not how I look at it. When I look at it like this, stepping all the way back and seeing the last 10 years under Andy Reid, and in my opinion, Andy Reid's the best coach in football. I believe that wholeheartedly, not just because of the success they've had over the last 4 or 5 years in particular, but it's because of the way he handles everybody that he works with and works under him, is that he treats all of his assistant coaches as if they were head coaches. He trusts. I remember the first 2 or 3 years with Patrick Mahomes, he'd go and sit on the bench and let Spags run his defense. He wouldn't even pay attention because he trusts him that much. And I think he still does to this point. He's very loyal, and sometimes that's an Achilles heel for Andy Reid, is he's sometimes loyal to a fault. And I look at Andy Reid as like a Gordon Ramsay, a master at his craft, just an insanely great chef that at times is going to delegate responsibilities to people he puts in place and he trusts. That's Eric Bieniemy, that's Dave Tobe, that's Steve Spagnuolo, that's Matt Nagy. That's all these guys that he puts in place to cook for him. But I think every once in a while, and this is just a theory. I'm not basing this off anything I know, but just looking at the fluidity of tonight's game and the difference between game to game from last week to this week, I feel like Andy Reid may have stepped in a little bit every once in a while and said, okay, I'm going to call a few of these. I'm going to show you guys why I'm Gordon Ramsay. And maybe I'm wrong, but there was a fluidity to tonight's game that I think that Andy just kind of flexed a muscle here or there. I mean, obviously we know that Andy Reid runs the offense. He's the one that throughout the week is working with EB and Patrick Mahomes and game planning like no other, in my opinion, outside of maybe Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan could ever do. I think that Andy Reid may have at times tonight said, because you saw there was many times, and I don't know if Sunday Night Football did it intentionally or not, but several times you saw Andy Reid, and it was before the 15, 16-second clock kicked in, you saw him voicing stuff into the microphone, looking at the play sheet. Maybe he was talking to Eric Bieniemy, or maybe he was talking to Patrick Mahomes directly. All I do know is you can't tell me for a second that Andy Reid didn't have his handprint all upon that game plan tonight. It was beautiful, and I give both him and Eric Bieniemy a ton of credit for what they did. I give Patrick Mahomes a ton of credit for hitting MVS deep because, like I said, that spread the defense open. They had that Bucs defense on their heels all night long. And I think that Eric Bieniemy, as we've talked to on this show, on the Spoken Podcast, several other shows, Eric Bieniemy should have been head coach years ago. I think we all can agree with that. This guy has done more improve himself. You have Nathaniel Hackett, who never even called plays with the Packers, getting a head coaching job. You have Josh McDaniels, who was like 6 or 7 games under 500 in his previous stop with Denver, getting another head coaching job. And here Eric Bieniemy is leading the best offense in the NFL for a 4-year stretch, still can't find a job. You can leave up your theories. You can throw them up there. The question, the fact remains, though, is this man is out here putting in the work and working with Patrick Mahomes. He's working with Andy Reid, and results are there far more often than they're not. So they all deserve credit here. I just think it was fascinating just how fluid the offense was from one week to the next.
Well, that's the reason I said it was kind of a collaborative effort. And the thing is, because Andy does such a great job with these guys, it's like anything else. It's the same thing like you might have.
Hey, JD, can we get a mic check on you? It's kind of being muffled on my end.
Is that better? Hold on. Let me see.
Are you getting that sound too, Lance?
Yeah, I just thought it was popcorn. Like JD's making popcorn. Let's go. We're going to JD's house. What's going on here?
Hold on. Let me see something. What about now? Can y'all hear me?
Oh yeah, we can hear you. It's just
we can hear it. It's like a popcorn sound, like kind of
Oh, okay.
I don't know how to explain it.
Put up the oval Redenbachers, man. Come on. We're doing
Yeah. Oh,
it's like a staticky sound.
okay. Yeah, I don't know what that is. I can't hear it. Well, I'll say this. And what I was talking about before is it's more of a collaborative effort that I look at these guys having. But it's the same thing. You know, Belichick's going to have his hand in on what they call for the defense. And it depends on what type of scheme a coach is running and where he comes from. Something like his school of thought. It's Bill Walsh's and those guys like that. Those guys are going to be the ones that kind of teaches the guys how to run certain things, right? I mean, that's their offense. And so Andy has to trust the enemy to run his offense. That's what it is. And so he's been under this, in Kansas City for 10 years, with Andy. And so they know each other, intimately well. And so they know what they're thinking. And so when they're talking, especially on their headset, it's only going to be certain voices that you hear, right? It's going to be Andy, the enemy, and my man, what's his name?
Matt Nagy.
Nagy, yeah. And so that's the voices you're going to hear. It ain't going to be anybody else's. So they're talking this out. But they've been talking about this during the off season and going through the game plan, right? And so it's going to be the same train of thought. Everybody is sitting over here putting their heads together saying, okay, this is what I like. This is what I like. But so Lance, this is why I kind of challenge when you talk fluidity, like the second half of the game last week, you've seen that when it came out on the second half, third quarter. It was the same fluid motion, getting the ball out of his hand quick. I mean, Pat said that after, in the post-game interview. It was the same thing, but then Pat was doing things that was probably not as, indicative of what he should have been doing, right? He's looking for the deep balls or maybe looking for the big routes, And so I think it's just the learning things, right? And once you go over film and you see what teams are doing, if they're trying to do to you, then that's what makes it even better. Like last week, I seen they ran a stunt, and McKinnon went in it. They ran the same stunt tonight, and they blocked it perfectly. You know, so you could tell they went over film. They was like, okay, we know Tampa Bay is going to probably run the same, stunt that Indianapolis did because they were successful with it. But everybody just picked it up. You can see the communication gotten better. Everybody had good fits. Pat was sitting back there, had a lot of lanes where he could throw the ball to. Everything looked clean. And so it was the same thing when I was sitting there talking about keys to victory. I was telling Marcus, man, one of the things you have to do is you got to move Travis around. Didn't I say it? You got to move Travis. Move him around so he knows what he's looking at. So he has a clean release. And so we start doing those things, and you got to run downhill. We start doing some more of that things. And so, like, just kind of seeing it, like, you got to establish who you want to be offensively, right? And so as much as we give heat praise on Andy being a great coach, these guys got to translate what he's doing with the enemy, you know, because the guy he has underneath him can't be incompetent. If he is, he's not going to give the keys to him, right? He's like, look, man, I'm giving you the keys to drive the car. I'm giving it to you. Now, I might still tell you how the shift works, right? Or how, you know, certain things, you know, may turn. I may still remind you of that, but this ultimately is yours. And so I think that's where it is. Like you said, Bieniemy should be a head coach. You know, we've been watching how these things been going on in the NFL, but without a doubt, man, it's a collaborative effort. It is without a doubt collaborative effort. So,
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out the best clips from Chief Concerns. And if you prefer to listen to the show, subscribe and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else you get podcasts.